in the report, and there was a prediction that rent rates would, obviously as a result of COVID, would naturally go a little bit lower in the first 4 to 5 months, but potentially rebound about 3%, maybe nationwide towards the end of the year. Now, I just happened to kind of go onto the Rentals.ca March rent report, and it looked like rents had almost stabilized March versus September. So I guess my question is, and I'll ask Ben. I'll ask you this question specifically. Uh, do you think we've hit the bottom? Do you think maybe it's come early and we're not going to have to see the fourth or fifth month play out?
Yeah, it's always hard to tell if we've seen a fundamental longer term increase in demand, or if it's just the short term spring market. Obviously, the spring, the rents really pick up in the marketplace. So it's a little bit harder to tell. And obviously, the rentals.ca information is asking rents. It's not the actual rents
Sure.
paid. So because rentals.ca keeps onboarding all these new landlords, and especially newly completed rental apartment buildings. So they'll add 200, 250 new units onto a single market. So it can't have the type of month over month fluctuation. So it's really hard to say if this is the bottom. We may see flat rents, I think, until the middle of the year. But I think when the vaccinations ramp up, what seems to be happening right now, we'll start to see people looking to get back to normal, and people trying to time the market, right?
Yep.
They want to get at the very lowest point. I think we're starting to get to that point where people are saying, well, this might be the lowest point that I'm ever going to see these rental rates. So if I'm going to make a move, I better do it right now.
No, exactly. I wish I was back in my 20s renting an apartment. So Andie, I'm going to ask you kind of the same question. You're out in Western Canada. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so same thing as Ben was saying, rents have definitely stayed pretty low. There's a ton of competition, especially in Alberta's market. We've seen a ton of new supply come to the market over the past 2 years. For example, in Edmonton, just over the last 2 quarters, over 18 buildings launched. So in the fourth quarter of 2020 and the first quarter of 2021. So that's a lot of product to come onto the market in a 6-month time period. Also during periods of the year that historically do have slower absorption rates. So we have seen those rents kind of stay pretty low to incentivize renters to rent. As Ben was saying, though, as vaccinations do roll out, ideally these buildings will be able to hit a period where they can raise those rents. Another thing that we're optimistic about is students going back to university. So the University of Calgary has already pitched a statement saying that students should prepare to go back to in-class learning in September. Which is great to hear for the city. And hopefully that will spur some more immigration, which will, of course, help that rental market, especially those buildings that do surround those universities. They definitely, did take a hit without those students renting there. So hopefully that will also spur a little bit more activity, and then we can start to see the rents creep up a little bit more back towards at least more market rents rather than these lower rents that we've been seeing for the past year.